do we still talk about books here? No, it's all over now. I'm allergic to the camera. Hi guys, it's Leanne. And it's been a hot minute. What's a better way of saying I'm back that's not an internet cliche? Stick the kettle on? Pop the kettle on, my loves, because I have returned. Firstly, before I go any further, I want to say thank you so much to all of you guys who have stuck around while there have been seasonal cobwebs growing on this channel. Thank you to all of you who came over to my Instagram to check that I was alive, who left a comment on older videos, or who sent me an email. I am indeed alive, or some semblance thereof. Whatever's left of me is clearly functioning enough to vaguely remember how to turn the camera on and press the record button. So we're just going to take that as the true soft semi-win that it is. Can anybody else hear the ticking? That's right, the internet has found me and it has booby-trapped the chair. If you've been here from the start of my channel, all those 7 misty years ago, then you guys will know that I've taken various breaks over the years, and they have almost all been mental health breaks. And if you have been here for a while, then you guys also probably know that I am a mental health advocate. I have never sugarcoated on this channel the times that I have struggled. I seek to bring you an unflinching view of whatever truth I'm currently living. So it's hard for me to kind of tell you guys the next part, because I've always been so honest when I'm struggling, and in the moment it's hard to admit that I was struggling and covering it up for a long time. I think it goes without saying that 2020 was awful for all of us. Literally every single one of us, almost without exception. And I did take a break in 2020 that I told you guys about in some detail, where I just wasn't able to read. But after that video, and after I was back on BookTube, I was having so much fun. Everything was just looking all the way up, and then somewhere around May 2021 that changed. It's hard to say why exactly that changed for me, except that there were 100 tiny reasons and some really big ones. But May was a really awful month, and it was clear by the end of May that I couldn't continue what I had been doing at the pace that I had been doing it without some sort of intervention. I posted this picture on my Instagram in June, and when I look back at it, I see how incredibly tired I am. At the time, I remember posting it thinking, oh, this is the best selfie out of this bunch, I'm gonna go with that, it looks great. And now I look at my eyes and I'm like, girl, you got some issues. My camera battery died on me. What more traditional way to say welcome back to BookTube than to cut me off in the middle of an emotional speech? Yeah, anyway, that girl, she didn't realise how many issues she had, but whoo, she was about to. At the start of June, I closed my shop. The whole idea was that I was going to have a couple of months where I would not work on the shop. I would actually take some time off, and then on the back of the time off, I would build up a stock of pre-filmed videos so that I would always be a couple of weeks behind, so that when I was working on the shop stuff again, there would be room for everything in my schedule. But that was not what happened. I now realise that I physically don't know how to have a break. I don't know how to stop. And so when I stopped, it was like one of the balls that I was keeping in the air was a breakdown. And I stopped spinning everything else, I let everything else drop, and unfortunately that also dropped and cracked like a great big rotten egg, and things were not great for a few months after that. So your girl was tired. I was fully tired, and I was fully in the grips of a breakdown. And it looked very different from any of the breakdowns that I had had previously, which I guess was one of the other reasons why I was completely convincing myself that this was not the case. Because previous breakdowns for me had literally looked like being unable to perform any kind of basic hygiene, self-care, getting out of bed, feeding myself properly, caring about myself at all. previous breakdowns had looked like what we traditionally think breakdowns look like, but this one was not that. I was functioning, I was getting out of bed, I was getting dressed, I was making videos, I was seeing friends, I was helping friends do things in their life, I was functioning. But I think there is such a huge difference between functioning and thriving, and when we're in the moment, sometimes we just don't see that. Sometimes it's impossible for us to recognise that that is the case. One of the other things that I haven't talked about at all on my channel so far is what happens when your mental health diagnosis shifts or changes. So around about this time, my doctor and I also started exploring other potential diagnoses, other reasons why I potentially could be the way that I was. And it's really funny because I think looking back on it again, people know you better than you know yourself sometimes. And one of my very best friends, Kirsty, had years ago floated to me the possibility of ADHD and kind of said, you know, have you ever looked into a diagnosis of this? Have you ever read the symptoms of this? One of my friends was diagnosed and it changed her life. And I kind of brushed it off like, oh, I don't think that that's me, but I also didn't do any research into it, which is interesting because I now know that there is not a lot of research into adult females with ADHD, and in fact that 90% of the research written for people with ADHD in general is for young boys. There is not a framework for this. I think we have a tendency as people to gravitate towards and away from labels that feel comfortable or uncomfortable to us. And so it's difficult as someone who advocates for free and open discussion of mental health, acceptance of it, and support within our community and, you know, in your wider life. It's difficult to realise that you have predisposed biases of your own. It was difficult to realise that the label ADHD terrified me so much that I didn't want to potentially explore something that could help to make me better, because I was afraid of the stigma attached to it, because I already have so many labels in my life that adding another one just felt like an insurmountable obstacle. It felt like it wouldn't be a thing that would help me to access help and treatment and ways to support myself. It felt like it was going to be yet another one of those things that I was going to have to advocate for myself for every time I listed it. And you know what? That's kind of true. It's still kind of true. And it turns out that in Scotland, getting an adult ADHD diagnosis is near impossible, which also means that there is a huge barrier to therapy and access to medication and a bunch of other things. None of these things are surprising things for any of us who live in the mental health world. I'd like to say that because I'm here and I'm back, that I'm better. I have always said to anybody who has come to me and said, you know, I have this new diagnosis, I don't know what to do with it, I'm at the worst point in my life, that your journey with mental health is going to be peaks and valleys, and it might take you a day or a year to climb to the top of a peak, and you could take in the view for years at a time for some people, weeks at a time for others, hours at a time for some people, and then you'll find yourself very slowly or very quickly descending into another valley, and then you have to pick yourself up and climb back out the other side. And the prospect of that initially, I think, sounds so daunting, that this is never gonna stop. This is not a thing that is ever gonna get better. You're not gonna be cured. But I've come to realise that every time I start the climb back out of one of those valleys, I find out so much about myself and so much about how much the people around me care. So I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm back and I'm totally better. I'm gonna tell you that I'm back because I love this space and I love all of you, and I want to come back and tell you about the books that I'm reading, and I want to take you on vlog journeys with me, and I want to show you the process of making bookish goodies for my shop. I'm literally surrounded in the detritus right now of packing orders. There are so many fabric bookmarks in my studio right now that I am genuinely in danger of just having to move out. I should just let them colonise and take over. So yeah, I want to be here, and you can hopefully expect regular bookish videos from me again. I miss you guys, and I hear you when you say that you miss me. But I'm not going to pretend that everything is great. We move, but we are not completely vibing. And that's okay, because it's not about perfection, it's about the journey. So let's talk about some books, shall we? Let's talk about my reading specifically. When I went into this weird period of breakdown, I was reading a lot. I was reading a lot more than I had been in the past 2 years almost combined, and that came to kind of a screeching halt. I just couldn't bring myself to pick up a book. I couldn't listen to audiobook. My attention just was not there, and so I ended up watching a lot of Netflix and Disney Plus. I have rewatched a lot of franchises and binge watched from start to finish a lot of shows. I am not sad about either of those choices. They were definitely the right choices for me at the time. And I don't think that we should force ourselves to read. As much as reading is obviously a huge part of my life, my business is based on it, my income is based on it, all of the stuff that I do that I love is based on books, I still don't think that that means that we should force ourselves to read them when we are not feeling it. So traditionally what happens to me, and I've talked about this a lot on my channel before, is that when I go from reading nothing into reading again, I tend to get there through mood reading, and I pick up a huge stack of books that I more or less read simultaneously, and that is very much the case now. That's very much what has happened to me. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I've got 8 books on the go right now. Am I sorry? No, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry in the slightest. So let me tell you about the books that I'm currently reading and why I picked them up. First of all, I have Such Pretty Things by Lisa Heathfield. This is about Clara and Stephen, who are 2 young children who, following their mother's fairly nasty accident, are sent to live with their aunt and uncle, who they really don't know anything about. Their aunt has waited her entire life for children. It is literally the only thing that she wants, and so when she hears that she's about to get custody of Clara and Stephen, she starts ripping her house apart. She buys beds, she makes pretty clothes, she starts doing things like preserving jams and, you know, like very nesting things. But when Clara and Stephen get there, they discover that actually this attention is less nurturing and more cloying. One of the biggest problems is that Clara's aunt is just not expecting Clara, who very much knows her own mind, who very much knows what she wants in life, and who doesn't necessarily believe that all of the adults in her life have good intentions. In fact, it has been proven to be the opposite on a few occasions, and so she's very dubious about this, and her aunt just doesn't know what to do with it. This was just not what she was promised that children would be, and so their personalities start to collide, which leads Clara to get more stubborn and dig up more dirt on exactly what happened in her aunt's life before they turned up. This book is written in a really kind of quite arresting way. It's got that quick-paced dialogue and sort of almost action-y feel in that from the minute that you step into this book, things are happening, you are going places. But it has this sticky, quiet undertone that clings to everything, and every situation that you're in just starts to feel a little bit more icky than the last one. And yes, so far I am really enjoying this one. Although I am super annoyed at myself because when I brought it through here to show you guys, my bookmark fell out. So now I'm potentially going to spoil myself while I find where I was in it again. Next up, we have possibly the most random pick in this entire stack. This is Nicholas and Alexandra by Robert K. Massie, and it is a historical investigation, I would say, into the last Tsars. So for those of you who don't know anything about Russian history, I was indeed one of those people when I started reading this book. This kind of covers Nicholas's birth, courtship, coming to power, and then the fall of imperialist Russia, wherein of course the story of Anastasia happens. One of these children is Anastasia. And I am not ashamed to say that the reason that I ended up picking this up was because over my break, one of the things that I was doing when I wasn't reading was listening to musical soundtracks, and I listened to the Broadway production of Anastasia, and I started to get curious. I've always been kind of vaguely interested in Russian history, but I really had absolutely no idea where to start, and so I did a deep dive and found this series. This is actually third in a 4-book series about the Russian Tsars and what happened when Russia underwent the revolution, but they can be read really in any order that you like, and in fact a lot of people just end up reading this one because of course it is about the most famous Tsars. The family Tsar, like the family Ness. Does anybody remember family Ness? Just dated myself, haven't I? Let's move on. If you are a lover of historical fiction, but a little bit afraid of historical non-fiction, investigative historical non-fiction, then I think you'll probably get on really well with this because the descriptions in it are very lush. It's a very conversational style. It's not quite... What can I compare it to? It's not quite in the conversational style of The Five by Hallie Rubenhold, but it very much does the same things in terms of setting the scene. And it has just got better the further that I've gone on. There were so many things that I had absolutely no idea about in this story, and I am so emotionally invested in literally everyone, which is a problem because I know how it ends. Next up, I'm going to tell you about one that's just been living on my bedside table. So I've read the first 2 pages of it, and I'm just waiting for the moment in which I am fully ready to pick it up, which I can feel will be soon. The urge has been there a few times. And I don't know very much about this, except that when it came out, it had astounding buzz. And while I don't usually read, you know, like the Daily Mail says you should read this book, I do pay attention to when my favourite authors really obsessively blurb something and really, really push it. And Jane Harper, who is of course the author of The Lost Man and The Dry, who is one of my favouriteest authors of all times, is absolutely enthralled with this book. She calls it a wonderfully haunting debut small town intrigue which is exquisitely drawn, and given that Jane Harper is the queen of small town intrigue, I snapped it up immediately. This is Tall Bones by Anna Bailey, and I love it. I love the end papers, and I love the creepy mirrored spine on the pure white book, which will not be pure white once I start reading it, but hey-ho. When 17-year-old Emma leaves her best friend Abigail at a party in the woods, she believes that their lives are just beginning. Many things will happen that night, but Emma will never see her friend again. Doom doom. EastEnders music. Abby's disappearance cracks open the facade of the small town of Whistling Ridge, its intimate history of long-held grudges and resentment. I kind of want to live in Whistling Ridge, just for a minute. Even within Abby's family, there are questions to be asked. Of Noah, the older brother whom Abby betrayed. Of Jude, the shining younger sibling who hides his battle scars. Of Dolly, her mother, and Samuel, her father, both in thrall to the fire and brimstone preacher who holds the entire town in his grasp. Then there is Rat, the outsider, whose presence in the town both unsettles and excites those around him. Anything could happen in Whistling Ridge, this tinderbox of small town rage, and all it will take is just one spark. The truth of what really happened that night out at Tall Bones. Doesn't it sound just perfect for spooky season? It better be perfect for spooky season. Next up, I am reading a book that is entirely the fault of Emma from drinking by herself. I have messaged Emma to tell her that it is her fault, and she did not seem to be remorseful about this fact. Which it's kind of fair because the book is amazing. This is The Mothers by Britt Bennett, and it is single-handedly responsible for sinking its claws into my chest, twisting my heart, and it is slowly in the process of yanking it out. This is about Nadia Turner. She is a teenage girl whose mother has recently committed suicide. She is left absolutely reeling and acting out her grief in all of the wrong places. And during this one particular summer, she meets Luke. She throws all of the love that she desperately wants mirrored back to her into this relationship with Luke, and then is horrified to discover that she is pregnant. But the truth of this one teen pregnancy will change the entire course of Nadia's life. Not only for Nadia and Luke, but also for Aubrey, who is Nadia's God-fearing friend. Then, as it says on the back, soon Nadia, Luke and Aubrey are full-fledged adults, still living in debt to the choices they made that one seaside summer. Caught in a love triangle they must carefully manoeuvre, and dogged by the constant nagging question, what if they had chosen differently? Speaking of new hearts, I'm just gonna mention this one, and then I'm gonna run away from it. Okay, I'm gonna show you it, I'm gonna tell you about it, and then I'm just gonna leave it where it lands and be off in the distance somewhere. Because my brain decided that following a full emotional breakdown, the best book for me to pick up and reread would be A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I don't really have any justification for this choice, to be perfectly fair. It just happened. It perhaps just happened because I was lucky enough to get a proof of Hanya Yanagihara's new novel, which comes out in January, which I'm going to be inhaling in a little while. Maybe it was that. Maybe I wanted to reread this because I was going to be reading that. Or maybe it was just because I have literally been thinking about rereading this and looking at it with new eyes since I read it the year that it came out. I don't know, man. I don't know, okay? I don't know. Is it the best thing that's ever been written? No. Do I need to tell you anything about it? No. Literally everybody knows that you are just a source of pain and depression, but it's happening. Okay, let's just... And finally, I have another one that has only just come to rest on the stack on my bedside table, but one that is very, very appropriate for spooky season. The cover is so grim, but it's so pretty at the same time. This is You Let Me In by Camilla Bruce. It's one of my favourite random little tropes in that it has a novelist as its central character. I kind of really love that when we follow an author. So somebody who is used to telling you stories and now you're wondering, are they telling you a story or are they telling you the truth? I love an unreliable narrator, and novelists are almost always those. I had a whole list of wishlist spooky books all picked out, but the thing that made me choose this one was this tiny bit at the start of the blurb that says, I wanted someone to know, you see, to know my truth now that I'm gone, how everything and none of it happened. It also helps that it starts with like a newspaper article. We know I'm a sucker for a tiny bit of mixed media. So the blurb says, everyone knew best-selling novelist Cassandra Tipp had twice got away with murder. Even her family were convinced of her guilt. So when she disappears, leaving only a long letter behind, they suspect that her conscience finally killed her. Wouldn't be me, I would have a completely untickled conscience. But the letter is not what anyone expected. It tells two chilling, darkly disturbing stories. One is a story of children lost to the woods, of husbands made from twigs and leaves and feathers and bones. The other is the story of a little girl who was cruelly treated and grew crooked in the shadows. But which story is true? And where is Cassie now? So yes, that is my not so tiny pile of books that I am currently reading or about to read that are all sitting... I mean, was there any need? No cats were harmed in the making of this production. Books that I am reading or will be reading very soon. So what can you guys expect from me in the next little while? I am hopefully going to bring you another couple of spooky books, videos, thrillers that are appropriate for the Halloween season and my favourite horrors. I probably won't do another TBR picking video till like November or December because I'm still mood reading right now and I'm just letting myself do whatever it is that I want to do. But I do intend on bringing you a bumper tops and bottoms, where I tell you about the books that I have read over like the course of time that I haven't done tops and bottoms, because although I was doing TBR videos, I wasn't always telling you about them on the other end. So I can tell you about some of the books that I absolutely loved and some of the books that I absolutely hated. And I also want to bring you some videos about what I learned from my book buying ban, and also my continuing thoughts on reading out loud on Goodreads and other tracking apps and things. So all of those things are swirling around in my head, and you will hopefully get to see them in the next couple of weeks. I am very, very thankful for you guys and the community that we have created on this channel, and I hope to be here for a long time to come. If you would like to check out the new releases in my Etsy shop, the link is here and I will pop it below in the description. There is another launch coming on the 26th of October, so if you missed out on anything like these mugs, there will be more of them coming then. As I leave, please, because I have missed saying this so much, tell me what you guys are reading right now. Have you read any of the books that I talked about here today? If you have, tell me your opinions. I missed your opinions in the comments, and tell me anything that you think that I would really like this spooky season. Anything new that you've read that you think would be right up my alley. I am very, very here for hearing it. And tell me how you guys have been. Tell me what you've been up to while I've been gone. I want to hear that too. And I will speak to you all genuinely really soon. Bye!